Jacen Syndulla made his live-action debut in Ahsoka, and since then fans have been wondering what his future holds. Strap yourselves in because Dave Filoni may have already given us a clue.
I want to be a Jedi.
However, it might not be what you expect from the son of rebel heroes.
No. The lightsabers.
Let's get into what Dave Filoni alluded to previously for this character, how it would completely shift the entire landscape of Star Wars, and why it could even play a part in the next Star Wars movie, because I personally feel at this point in time, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, whilst they're telling their story in the Mandoverse, they definitely have one eye on the sequel trilogy and what happens there. So wouldn't it make sense for them to also be looking at the story beyond Episode 9? Now, to really understand where Jacen Syndulla's future could lead, we first need to understand who Jacen is. An unusual mixture of Twi'lek and human, born to his mother, A-class pilot and General Hera Syndulla, whilst his father on the other hand was Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus, and it's the traits he inherited from his father that would likely determine his future. In Ahsoka, Jacen is around 10 years old, so you'll be forgiven in wondering how this young, relatively new addition to Star Wars could have had his path painted out over 3 decades ago. Now, the name Jacen will be instantly recognisable to fans of Star Wars Legends, as it's the name Syndulla shares with Jacen Solo. Now, you might be thinking, well, it could just be a coincidence. Well, I have to tell you, it's not. Dave Filoni has already confirmed the inspiration of the name Jacen for Jacen Syndulla actually came from Jacen Solo. Come to think of it now, both characters also have parents with striking similarities as well. Both Han and Hera are pilots, whilst both Kanan and Leia were Force sensitive. For those of you who aren't all that familiar with Star Wars Legends or Jacen Solo and who he really is, his birth coincides around the same time as Jacen Syndulla's first live-action appearance in Ahsoka, although of course Jacen Solo only exists in Star Wars Legends. The son of Han and Leia, Jacen grew to become a Jedi, but his faith was shaken by the Jedi of the time during the Yuzong Vong War. He succumbed to the dark side and took on the persona of Darth Caedus, although not through a thirst for power, but actually to save the galaxy and his family from a terrible future he had the burden of seeing. It was always going to be a struggle to stay true to any good intentions he once had. From that point on, he spent his life as a Sith Lord, although there was always an internal struggle within him between what was right and wrong. And it was only in his final moments where the light side of Jacen Solo seemed to return, very similar to Darth Vader's story in that respect. And like Anakin, Jacen Solo continued to redeem himself after death. Now, due to the sequel trilogy, there's no possible way Darth Caedus himself could just appear in Heir to the Empire, but there's every possibility he could be recreated in a way for live action through Jacen Syndulla, whose story looks to be unfolding during the same time as Jacen Solo's did in Legends. With 20 odd years to go until we reach the sequel trilogy, it seems the next big event we'll see in Star Wars will be the live action retelling of another Legend story, Heir to the Empire, and it's worth noticing here the original Thrawn trilogy of books really were the starting point for Jacen Solo's story. Whilst it's unlikely he will become a big player in Dave Filoni's crossover movie, it's still more than likely he'll be around. Now, whilst Jacen Syndulla is older at this point than Anakin was when he began his training, the circumstances are very different. Anakin, on one hand, was found and brought into an established Jedi Order, whereas during Jacen's time, Luke is only really beginning to establish his version, and that's even if Jacen goes to train under Luke, because, well, we know how that ends up. But what's most interesting to me from his role within Ahsoka is his ability to hear Anakin and Ahsoka's lightsabers clashing within the world between worlds. This level of connection to the Force without any prior training could very well point towards his power once trained exceeding many of our expectations. Now, I think the most likely scenario in the future would be for Jacen to train with Ahsoka or even Ezra upon his return to the galaxy. And with the new galaxy introduced into Star Wars, and with a lot of fans speculating that perhaps the futures of characters like Ahsoka, Sabine, maybe Ezra and even Jacen as well could reside over there, at least for a time, as a way to explain their absence from the sequel trilogy, perhaps this is where a version of a new Jedi Order is established. And with the story of Thrawn set to dominate Star Wars for the next few years at least, which could still potentially leave 10 to 15 years free for more stories before we reach The Force Awakens, it's totally conceivable that Jacen could become a Jedi in this time and also fall to the dark side. And we already know that they're looking to explore the time after the sequel trilogy with the new Jedi Order Rey movie coming out in 2026, but I can't help but wonder what the threat could really be to the galaxy so soon after Palpatine's second defeat. Jacen Syndulla would be into his mid-30s during the time of this new Jedi Order movie, that's set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. Perhaps he's in this new galaxy established in the Ahsoka show alongside perhaps Ahsoka herself, Sabine, maybe Ezra, and part of Rey's quest to establish a new Jedi Order leads her to them. With Dave Filoni being a fan of Star Wars Legends, which can be seen with his desire to tell the Thrawn story in the first place, and the fact he's already created a host of characters in his animated shows that is now bringing into live action, why would he stop at Thrawn? Why wouldn't he continue to retell the Legends stories that follow, using the characters he established in the Clone Wars, in Rebels, and some new additions to take up the role of the characters in Legends? Taking into account the fact that Dave Filoni openly admitted a few years ago that Jacen Syndulla's name came from Jacen Solo in Legends, and the similarities the two share, do you think Jacen Syndulla could become a live-action version of Darth Caedus? Let me know down in the comments. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to catch more videos. I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you.